Hello and welcome to another wilderness tamed gardening video. Is it gardening? This one we're looking at my chosen log splitting technique. Being a left-handy, I have the advantage of being quite ambidextrous, so I can swing both ways. Roll credits. But the advantage of that is you don't exhaust yourself quite so quickly, and I use a technique which employs momentum and gravity rather than any sort of real muscle strength, which again gives me the advantage that I just keep swinging the axe and chopping wood continually at a steady pace for literally for hours on end if I'm given enough sort of wood to split. So this is what I do. Some of these are quite soft. So there's not a lot to go at. That's a soft one. Join us. Just don't make too much noise.
Okay.
We set the chainsaw to quiet mode. Eh? Yes, it has, yes. It's called off. Pressure of being on camera. So now that Fran has started with the chainsaw, it's not as peaceful. So you've got the general idea. I'll probably do a talk over, but I can just carry on doing that forever. Fran's going to be supplying me with more logs to chop, which is great. So it's a pleasant way to spend a weekend in Dumfries and Galloway when you've got nothing better to do with your time. Over and out. You all go like that, I'll look really good on camera. If only I had somebody to stack these logs for me. Starfish on this one. How are you finding the saw?
Really good.
Yeah, because since you've sharpened it, it's been...
Is that not different chain long?
Might be.
Yeah, it just goes straight through. It helps that it's soft wood though. I'm not used to doing soft wood. The wildlife woods, it's all beech and sycamore. And it just takes forever to get through it. And this is just...
It blunts the saw a bit.
Yeah, I haven't sharpened that when I refilled it. Because it's just going through fine.
Yeah.
It's not putting up much resistance.
Maybe after the next refuel. Dead slimy under the bark, into the bark socket.
Looking through pockets was like a rock pocket full of wood lice and invertebrates.
Yeah.
Not the best way. If this was mine, I'd probably just left those as regular
Aye.
as habitat.
Just his habitat, yeah.
And I would have taken out some of these healthy
Beach.
beech and pine
Aye.
and thinned it out a bit.
Mm.
Look at my garden, so
Got to do what the customer asks for. Even if they're seldom right. It's alright, they're friends. Hopefully they won't see this video.
I might do this one. Is that alright?
This fella here. Comfortable. So as you can see, my technique involves the use of momentum, which is the swinging back of the maul, and then that sweep up, which involves no strength at all, brings in the gravity side of it. You've got to, it's at that point, at the apex of the swing, that you're thinking about your aim. So you're kind of focusing on what it is you're going to hit and bringing the axe down onto that point. The chap who taught me, who was a Basque fella, he used to enter competitions, and they would put pencil lines on the tops of the logs, and you had to split through the pencil line, which is pretty exacting. There's occasions where I can be quite precise, but maybe it's not that precise. But in a lot of logs, in fact I'll get one for you to illustrate. And I'm going to have to put my glasses on so even I can see it. There's quite often, although there isn't, it's not that visible on this, it's quite often a natural fracture line running through the wood at some point from the sort of the crown or the centre running outwards, and you would swivel your log round on your plinth and try and hit it on that fracture line, and that would make your first cut pretty much guaranteed to split the log. As regards when to cut your timber and when to split, the sooner you can start splitting your wood, the better. So don't let it dry out for a year thinking that it's going to be more brittle and it will split easier. Actually, most hardwoods split easier when they're freshly felled, or when, you know, in the case of these, they're all storm damaged. So as they've come down, you get to them pretty quick, disc them up, you know, cut them into like thin stuff like this, cut them into decent lengths to go into your wood burner, and they'll split okay. With broader, wider girth timbers, you would disc them sort of, you know, maybe it's that thick, and then you slice them like a pizza into eighths or whatever. These kind of little guys, I'm either halving or quartering as best I can. If they were a bit thicker, I mean, generally this halved is enough for going into a wood burner. A little bit thicker again, and you'd look to quarter them. Gets interesting when they've got all these knots, because there's a lot of very tight grain in there, so splitting through that can be a bit of a challenge. But again, these are softwoods. This is, I think, larch that's come down, is it? I didn't really get a good look at the tree before it was cut up. Yeah, softwoods split fairly easily anyway. It's the hardwoods that are more of a challenge. Fran, who's cutting the wood for me with a chainsaw, logging it up, she's flying through it. The chansaw's gone through 3 trees, and she's only just sharpening it now. And it doesn't even need it really, she's just doing it to give herself a bit of a rest. Yeah, that's some of the secrets of log splitting. And if you're into biodynamics, fell your tree, or you want your tree to come down when they're at a new moon, is that right? So that all the fluid in the tree's gone down into the root system and out of the trunk, so it's not too wet. I think I've got that the right way around. Anyway, I'll crack on. another point about this. I hope I'm picking that up. But even if you're not left-handed and you're not naturally ambidextrous, it's worth practicing that, swinging both ways. You don't have to do it chopping logs. If you get yourself a fairly light maul hammer or even a maul and just have an old log as a plinth that you can mush into with the blade, just practice without splitting anything, swinging both ways. But even if you can't and you can only swing using your right hand, with this technique you could keep that going a lot longer than lifting the axe up, which most people do this kind of thing. And there's just way too much effort in that. You can't maintain that for hours and hours on end like I can with this. It's just, it's not feasible. And you end up getting like a tennis player's arm, one very, very strong arm and the other one's useless to you. So, yeah, try and balance things out and swing both ways. Need somebody else to cut me some wood now. I'll pause you. Now, what was wrong with that? What was wrong with that was, as you probably tell, I'm using a maul, which is a splitting tool, rather than an axe, which is a chopping tool. a little bit out of breath because that's harder work than it should have been. So you've got to know your tools, and a maul, I should have brought it over. Has this profile. It widens very quickly. It's like a wedge. If you've seen people chopping trees down with chainsaws, they'll often hammer a wedge into the tree just to keep it open, so they can get their chainsaw blade in. Then they sometimes use a wedge or a lever to send the tree over. But an axe would have a much narrower profile than this. It wouldn't come out so wide so quickly. It would follow a much narrower, more streamlined profile. I do have one. I just can't be bothered to go over to the van and get it out. But that was more to illustrate the momentum and gravity swinging both ways technique, which is, as I say, you can keep going. I'd probably slow it down a bit. I had a lot of wood to chop, but yeah, you can maintain that for a lot longer than doing it one way and using all your muscle strength. So I hope I'm getting this point across. It's well worth persevering with and practicing with. Anyway, here's Fran from Durham Dales Ecology, bringing my chainsaw and her years and years of habitat management experience to help me out. Would you like to say a few words to the camera, Fran?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's made my day. I'm not going to repeat what she's done.